Welcome back to Be the Good with Kate, the show that inspires each of us to see how we have the power to make a difference all around us. Each episode highlights an individual doing good in the world while following their passions, good for their own souls and for others. I get so excited about sharing each and every episode of Be the Good with you, and I hope you enjoy these people and stories. If you're new here, welcome, and if you are returning, thank you so much for your support. I'm so glad you found Be the Good with Kate and would love to hear from you. If you're finding value in these episodes, I invite you to share with someone who could also use this dose of good news, or tag me on social with your favorite quote from the episode. Every share, subscriber, review, and comment helps me to share these guests' wonderful work to more people. Thank you for your help in this. Now, on to this week's episode. Let's spread a little more goodness in the world. Today on Be the Good with Kate, I am beyond thrilled to introduce you to Leif Cocks. He is the founder of the Orangutan Project, and he is talking to me today from all the way in Australia. He found a way to make our schedules work, and I'm very grateful. So glad we connected here. A little bit about Leif. He established the Orangutan Project in 1998 to secure the survival of critically endangered orangutans in their natural habitat. Interesting to note, orangutan conservation is an umbrella that supports biodiversity conservation, indigenous communities, and mitigation of climate change. Leif has had a 30-year career working with orangutans. Leif's years in the field have earned him respect within the conservation field, and the Orangutan Project has world standing in conservation. He's been a key player in developing conservation plans for orangutans and influencing positive change for orangutan protection and survival. This includes the first ever successful reintroduction of the zoo-born orangutan. He has an extensive resume. He is an author of multiple books, and I am just so excited to introduce him to you. So Leif, thanks so much for being here today.
Oh, great to be here, Kate. Thank you.
Thank you. And please tell everybody a bit more about who you are and what you do, but in your own words.
Well, my mission is to save orangutans, tigers, and elephants from extinction. And we've got the next 10 years to turn this extinction crisis around. And the wonderful thing about this mission is it's this win-win situation for everybody. And so it's most cost-effective thing we can do to mitigate climate change is to save rainforest. The best thing we can do for the economic future of the local communities is to save the rainforest. And, so and obviously saving orangutans, tigers, and elephants as examples of much of and all the biodiversity we're trying to save is worthwhile in itself. And so it's a great journey with wonderful people to see if we can turn the extinction crisis around.
Fantastic. And I have to ask, so if you were speaking to someone who knew nothing about rainforests, nothing about climate change, you just really had to give the 101 version of why are saving the rainforest so important, how would you frame that?
We're all interconnected, and there's some organs which, are far more important in the human body, than others. Which, if we lose or get damaged, provide immediate threat to our existence as a person. And so similarly, the rainforests are those important organs of the planet, and their entire functioning ecosystems, and the more intact and more diverse those ecosystems are, and more expansive they are, the happier and healthier the planet will be. And so it's really our most important planetary organ, I guess, which is important for our health and longevity.
That's a great way to describe it. And Leif, I know that you've had a vast background working with orangutans, starting at least from schooling, if not from before. So can you share a little bit more about your path to where you are now?
Well, I've always had an affinity to and desire to work with animals. And so my journey's always been in that direction. And of course, then I had the opportunity to work with 15 orangutans and discovered that they're self-aware persons, who didn't belong in captivity. And also very quickly is that these beautiful, noble persons that share our planet are being driven to extinction in the most horrific ways that we could be imagined, being burnt alive and macheted. In fact, we know a minimum of the last 20 years, since I've been working with orangutan conservation, over 100,000 have been killed. And so it's really it's a slaughter of sentient persons that share our planet. In fact, the most intelligent beings that share our planet next to us. In this horrific scale and manner, that has motivated the need for the Orangutan Project and our mission, not only to save them, but create the greater good of saving the rainforest, indigenous communities, and our planet.
Wow. Now, I know growing up in America, we always heard a lot about elephants being poached and that worry of losing them. And it just seemed, at least from where I was always hearing about elephants and elephants and elephants. So do you find that, is it just because, are there more elephants and that's why we're not hearing about orangutans or some of these other animals as much? Or is it just they ended up with publicity somehow? Or has the orangutans become more of an issue over the years? Like, what do you feel about how that has happened?
I think there's two aspects to it. One is, well, elephants are pretty cool animals. And they're big, and so why not they be popular, and they're intelligent persons just as us and orangutans. And in fact, we also run the International Elephant Project, which is looking at trying to save the Sumatran elephant. We're supporting elephant reintroduction in Laos and supporting the development of the AI technology for bioacoustic monitoring of elephants to increase their conservation. So we're heavily working in that field, as well as obviously working with human-elephant conflict to stop elephants and people in Sumatra from killing each other, as they get, both indigenous communities and elephants gets pushed into smaller and smaller patches of rainforest, both persons trying to survive. And so elephants are damn cool and certainly worth the attention. But the other aspect to it is I think most people, we grow up with understanding conservation of wildlife being in Africa, and we see the African elephants, and so that's where our minds go to first. And African wildlife gets the bulk of conservation efforts and money. But unfortunately, I would say, let's say African conservationist worst nightmare is my dream. And so African elephant conservationists will say, hey, look, oh my God, we only got 200,000 elephants left. And if we don't turn this around in the next few years, we might end up with 20,000. Now, the Asian conservation situation is so much dire and so much more important in that aspect, because, for example, we've only got 1,200 Sumatran elephants left in scattered groups, no viable population. And our fantasy is, if we can save these ecosystems in time and then manage these elephant populations at a mega population by transferring the males, we could save 2,000 and just have the bare minimum to stop the species from dropping into an extinction spiral. So, and that's the same with all other wildlife. Asian conservation doesn't get the attention it does, or the imagination which is brought up from a diet of African wildlife documentaries in our youth. But it's so much more critical and just as unique and important. So we may not have gorillas, we have orangutans. We may not have African elephants, but we've got Sumatran elephants. We may not have lions, but we have tigers. In fact, there's actually more tigers in private hands in America than there are in the wild in Indonesia, and we only got 300 left, and we have to fight a constant battle against the crime syndicates who are looking to poach and kill the last remaining tigers.
And I'm so glad that you really shed that extra light into all those differences, because we do kind of fall into, like, we as in the general population, I feel like, fall into, oh, whatever we see in the news or whatever the headlines are, or whatever there was a book about at some point in our childhood. So, but that's, nothing's going to grow from there, right? Nothing. We need people like you who are speaking up. We need to be hearing these stories. We need to be learning about there. I mean, this world is a giant place, and there's so many animals out there. So this is just, it's incredible to hear.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, it's, Asian wildlife in general, is not getting the publicity for one part. Is one is, obviously we're talking about Africa, but the African animals have such the advantage, like gorillas and chimpanzees live on the ground, and so you can get a nice video of them, for the documentary. Orangutans live semi-solitary lives 40 meters in a tree. Even they're the most intelligent being share the planet, and just so wonderful. It's very hard to make a really compelling documentary. The African elephants are, roaming in big herds across vast plains, make fantastic video, of them, where you can be 20 meters away from a group of Sumatran elephants in the rainforest and not see them. They're very cryptic, even though they're so large, in the Indonesian rainforest. And so then they come out at night and raid the crops and back into the forest, and so although they're just as wonderful and fantastic, the opportunity of those video and sound bites are not so available, and so it does make it harder for conservationists to put in front of people the beauty, the wonder, and the majesty of these beings, and the importance of saving them before it's too late.
Wow, that is so interesting to me. And I know we got a little tangent there, but I was fascinated. Leif, how did you go from, studying orangutans in general and the work you did to the actual founding of the Orangutan Project?
Mm-hmm. Well, as I mentioned, I was working with them, and on my holidays, I would go up into Indonesia and rescue orangutans and learning about them, and of course realizing there's this huge gap, as we're talking about, between the need to save these beautiful creatures and that rainforest home, then what was actually happening. And so I started the Orangutan Project in 1998 to fill in the gap. And that's basically continually what we do is, we don't want to have another organization competing with another organization down the road or try to do the same thing as other organizations. What we do is we work with a whole grade of wonderful organizations and wonderful people. And we fill in the gaps of a holistic mission to save up to 8 ecosystems, the right type, shape, and size of rainforest before it's too late. So we're kind of the glue and the gap filler, to ensure that all the different aspects of conservation, whether it's land purchase, lease, ranges, community development, reforestation, habitat monitoring, bioacoustic monitoring that we mentioned, we can fill in the gaps of whatever's needed, and to ensure that we can do this mission before it's too late.
Oh, that's excellent. So that's a perfect segue into share some of the good news moments along the way, whether it's orangutan saved or people that have become a part of the project, or anything you'd like to share.
Well, there's two I'd like to share. One is orangutan, one humanitarian. The orangutan one is, when I release tomorrow the first zoo-born orangutan back into the wild. So either with her from birth all the way up to release, and the first 6 weeks of her in the jungle, and then over 3 years later, she was still being monitored, and then becoming slowly wild. And you really can see that, as in all persons, the true majesty and dignity that you see in a human being, you also then see in orangutan when it's free, wild, and independent. So just as we may see humans in prisons, refugee camp is somewhat, in a sense, an ugly caricature of the magnificence of what a human being can be. When we see orangutans in the zoo, we see an ugly caricature of the magnificence of them. And then obviously to see this orangutan go from, institutionalized zoo orangutan to free and wild, and then being able to, after 3 years, finding her in the rainforest and connecting with her and actually holding hands in the forest, and as independent persons connecting again free in a natural habitat was obviously a wonderful moment. But the other segue into the other one I just wanted to bring up is in that same rainforest is two indigenous communities, the Orangutan and the Talakmalak, who themselves are struggling, and their children were being malnourished with high infant mortality, because the orangutans forests are disappearing due to the big multinationals taking all the land, but also the indigenous communities' forests are disappearing. It's the same forest, and they both are suffering from the exploitation of the homes. Two sentient beings sharing the same rainforest and having the same conditions. So we started feeding the school children, educating them, giving university and high school scholarships, bringing the midwife. And before we started, the Talakmalak didn't name their children till 6 years old, because you don't want to get attached to those little guys because they're probably going to be dead. And now they get named at birth, and now they're prospering. And so, that's, just another, wonderful indicator of the holistic approach that, this good that we do for all sentient beings, it connects us all, from humanitarian to environmental to animal welfare.
I love the perspective of, just the completely being interconnected. And I'm also starting to wonder if you ever sleep, because not only do you have the Orangutan Project, you're also working with the elephants, you're working with the people of the rainforest. I mean, I have to just ask, what is your schedule like? Is every day completely different? Do you get rest times?
It's very eclectic. And so, so a lot of my work is, with, the mission and all the individual projects, and all over Indonesia, and each of these key ecosystems, there's different people. And so that's one aspect. The other aspect is what I'm doing now is being the voice for orangutans and conservation, and connecting with people, and making people understand how wonderful and important they are. The other aspect is because what's limiting us for achieving these goals is the finance available to achieve the outcomes. And so I'm on the board of charities that we've created in New Zealand, Australia, Canada, Europe, Canada, and the US. And so there's all that kind of administration thing. And so it could be quite eclectic. My day could be, in a sense, of helping as a representative, connecting people to a wider audience, is working with my wonderful field managers and staff to enact the conservation, or could be the normal administration of running a multinational organization. And so it can be extremely eclectic, and we're just a small group of people compared to the impact we're doing. We don't have an office. We all work off, our laptops anywhere around the world. We don't have a filing cabinet. We keep things very lean because we just want to get maximum funds into the wild. And of course, ultimately, we want to create a world where we're not needed. That we create a world that our mission is completed, and then we can go off and maybe do some other good.
I'm completely fascinated. Leif, is there anything that you say to yourself or your staff or your volunteers that help you get through the extra challenging days? Any mantras, quotes, sayings?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's one of the things is, we have to have a selfless attitude towards our cause. So most of us have this hollowness inside ourselves, this unhappiness. And people will feel it in their careers, looking for name, fame, money, and power. And this, I've seen even in conservation, so many conservationists and organizations actually destroy the mission they're trying to create, because in the end, that they need these what I call adult toys of name, fame, money, and power to keep them happy, you know. And so what I always say, we find that we've got to do is we find the happiness within ourselves. We don't need that anymore. And then we selflessly move towards solving the problem and achieving the mission. There's two things that happen with that. Is one is we become very happy, expressing that love and beauty that we find within ourselves into the world, and we don't need anything from it. But the other aspect too, which we touched on, is then you have the energy, then you have the drive. You know, you're not, you find that people are motivated for selfish means, get very despondent, and they have to have a rest. They have to, because the world, the slings and arrows of outrageous fortunes of the world, and conservation is like a marathon with hurdle with a professional boxer punching your face every 20 meters. And so you don't do too well if you run by the ego, but if you run by love and compassion and spreading joy to the world and happiness, and it's not about yourself, it's about helping others, then you find you will have boundless energy to achieve your mission.
Like that those last 60 to 90 seconds of just, just rewind and listen to it whenever we're having a bad day. That was beautifully put. And going along with that, Leif, if someone comes to you and says, okay, I want to make a difference, like I feel it in my heart, but I just don't know where to start, or I don't know which way to turn, is there any advice you'd give that person?
Look, the main issue, I think we've been fed this pup of individual actions can make a difference. I think we should make individual actions as a matter of personal integrity, and there's nothing wrong with that. But human beings have never achieved anything as individuals. We've only achieved things when we collectivize together. And so I would say, my major skill is to be able to collectivize wonderful people together. And that's far more important than any individual skill, that I may have. And so I always say to people, look, if you want to achieve something in the world, you've got to collectivize. There's no possibility of achieving anything without that. And that puts people into basically two camps. Busy people with money. And I said, look, collectivize your capital. Just as a businessman smartly collectivize his capital, form a company if you want to make money. So do that, collectivize your capital in an organization which is going to achieve your values and make a difference in the world. Or you could be money poor and time rich and collectivize your labor. Join a group and volunteer, help run a fundraising event. And we have many wonderful volunteers who do that. They run stalls at markets and run quiz nights and collectivize their labor to make a significant difference. And so I would say two things. One, reflecting back on my last comments, is find the happiness within yourself and express that love and connection, because selfless work for others is not a path of sacrifice, it's a path of joy and fulfillment. And then make the intelligent move to collectivize your efforts. And that way, I believe we can make a significant difference in the world.
Leif, you have such the perfect energy about you that just makes someone want to listen and hear more, and so much wisdom coming from you today. I can't thank you enough. So please tell everyone where they can find out more, where they can donate if they'd like, or volunteer. And of course, you have a very full YouTube presence as well. So please share some of that with us.
You can go to the Orangutan Project.org, and you'll see all the stuff about all the work we're doing and how to connect and how to support us. Connection to our sister project, International Elephant Project, International Tiger Project, and Forest for People. So if you have a desire to help in those aspects, you connect into those projects. And then you can also connect, through our social media, through Facebook and YouTube, to get the information about what we're doing. You can join me on EcoTour. You can go about how to help and join EcoTour, where I take people into the rainforest and connect them with this wonderful place, that this Garden of Eden, which we ironically feel so home at, because it's where we've evolved. And then you get to see the wonderful conservationists on the ground who are doing that, direct, meaningful work to save this species. So that's a wonderful way to support. And I give talks every night about different subjects, and takes people on this journey of discovery of, well, not only orangutans but ourselves as a human species. So those are all the wonderful ways that you can help connect for what we're doing.
Incredible. Eco tours, right? That's what they are called, right?
Yes. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't
Saw
believe
it on the
in this particular mass ecotourism will work, because it will destroy the environment for which it's pretending to save. But why do these boutique ecotours, and so, and take people, a small group on a a unique and wonderful journey into the forest, and then because we're funding and working with all these projects to rescue, rehabilitate orangutans and save the rainforest, then they have this kind of unique opportunity to connect, not with an eco tour guide as such, but with real conservationists, and that's obviously a unique experience for the guests.
Oh my goodness. Well, if anyone listening does one, please share with me. I want to hear all about it. That sounds absolutely incredible. Leif, I cannot thank you enough for your time, for your passion, for your energy, and just all the best to you and the Orangutan Project.
Well, thank you, Kate. It's been wonderful to be here.
Thanks so much for listening to Be the Good with Kate Chericello. Whether you're listening on YouTube or via podcast, it would mean the world if you liked, subscribed, and or left a review. You heard about the good? Now go out and be the good in your life this week. If you have stories of good news that need to be shared, please send me a message. Thanks again, and have a great week.